Hello and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show for you with my great co-host Smoking in G Sharp. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you, Milky Way Soul Tribe. I love coming on your show. It's so cool. I love all these new people I'm meeting. It's great.
Oh, that is awesome. I am glad to be in your circle for sure.
Yeah.
But tonight we are going to go way back into the past. We're going to take a journey back to when America was just beginning. And we're not talking when the Pilgrims show up. We're talking about before that. Who were the people that lived here in those days? And why are they important to us? That's the bigger question. Why were those people important? And why do we care? And how did it lead up to where we are right now?
See, that's just it. It's like a lot of people really think history's boring and they don't care. But if you don't know where you've truly come from and where you truly are, we're doomed as a culture.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very important. It's a balance. Everything's, yin and yang, past and future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everything repeats itself in some crazy way. The future. What did Mark Twain say? That the future rhymes, and something like that.
Oh, he says, yeah, history may not always repeat itself, but sometimes it surely rhymes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I got that in a book somewhere here wrote down, but it's not
Yeah,
handy.
no, we're on some really crazy cosmic clock.
Yes. Oh yeah.
The grand, yuga, right down to our weeks, months, and years.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, and that is what it is being in that moment when you realize that things are starting to rhyme or repeat or somehow mirror the past. And I was telling somebody the other day how I don't like talking politics or talking about things because YouTube's particular about that stuff. But I can talk about the history, and that they don't care so much about. And I can refer that to what's happening today, and everything is good.
Absolutely. I do the same on my channel. I focus on these weird, quirky things and go, look, back in 1999, they lied to us. You got to see they're continually doing that, hasn't stopped. And
No.
yeah, I do that. And I pull some real ancient, so people can stop and look at what they've been taught. A lot of it, boy, looking back at it now, we have to have a lot of questions.
Oh yeah, a lot of questions. Why? What's going on? How does this relate to us? But more often than not, we don't. We just forget about it and move on, and then it happens again. So, well, let's find out about some history tonight. And we're going to go back in time, long before the Pilgrims came, to our first societies out there in the Americas. Now, we know all about Europe. You can dig up European stuff everywhere you go. You can find out about the Romans and the Spaniards come, and you can find out about the Bedouins and the Asians and the Chinese and all of that, because they lived on that continent of Europe and Asia there and African, but here's the thing, and they got monuments over there that they still talk about today, like Egypt. Who hasn't heard of the Great Pyramids? It's one of those things that's out there. We know those people were out there at one point in time and made great pyramids. They're still standing today, and they can't get rid of them. Right?
Well, they'd like to get rid of them in our minds. Yeah. And we've come across just the other day I saw they have a new tomb. They think it might be Cleopatra's.
Yep.
However, regardless, the point is they're finding more all the time. I woke up when they came up with the Bosnia pyramids that they found. I said, oh my gosh, these things are really all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that, the large stone structures survived what I call a previous civilization's catastrophe.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes, or many previous
Oh yes.
civilization
Oh yes.
catastrophes.
It's a roller coaster up and down with. I think there were a few smaller ones in between, but that grand one that created so much and was destroyed.
Yes, yes. Well, at least I think that there was that big, maybe we should say the last one that destroyed so much. But those other ones that were here, maybe it wasn't so bad, and those people survived to some point. So that's where we're going. Exactly where we're going with this tonight is here we got these pictures of these natives that are just kind of living around, wandering wild, and we picture in our minds that the Indians came across, living in tents and teepee things, and they were just literally savages or wild men with no art, no history, no nothing. But why? And how did they get that way? And why do we? What? The big question is why do we believe that?
Because the winners write the history books.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that it was deceiving at the time of
Yeah.
what happened. So we're going to go back to the time of first recorded people, and talk a little bit about them. And oh shoot, I got a screen share here. Anyway, I got screens I want to share with you, and we can talk a little bit about this. And there we go. And I'm going to do this so we can have them on there and present our show, which people like to look at a little bit of a picture and kind of get it in their mind. So we've been told that this is how the Native Americans lived before for thousands of years before the coming of the white man, right? They were barbaric. They lived in tents, stick structures, very primitive, yada, yada, yada. Correct? Or am I wrong?
No, you're very correct. And the story that you just laid out is very wrong.
Yes, yes. Okay. The story I laid out is very wrong. Here's the thing. These people weren't like this at all times. Now, you have to go back to the earliest accounts of these people. And so I did. I took a trip back into history as best as I could, and I found out things from like De Soto. He was, a Spaniard who came looking for the gold. If you haven't heard De Soto, go look him up. He was sent here, and he went up through Florida, up into Louisiana, Arkansas, down to Texas, all in those areas. He went as high as like Tennessee, maybe Illinois, somewhere in there. He had quite the trip. He went down the Mississippi, and eventually, guess what happened? He got sick and died. Well, guess what he brought to give the Indians?
Smallpox.
No, well, I don't know if he gave them smallpox, but he did. We'll just say he gave them diseases.
Mm-hmm.
And there were other people who came along the coast, and they came and they brought diseases too. And we're talking about, here's a good story for you. And this is Squanto. Have you heard of Squanto?
No.
Okay. When the English first, I think it was the English, or oh yeah, it was they landed, or the Spanish had landed in on the Americas. I think it was the English, but anyway, they landed. They picked up Squanto along the East Coast, somewhere in between around Massachusetts area. So I think it was English. Squanto went with them. He went with the white man back to their country to see what was going on. Now you remember this was early 1500s. This was like early 1500s. Squanto went back. Squanto learned the English language. Squanto got sick. Squanto was healed because he had medicine. Somebody took pity on him. I guess he was a slave. And eventually, they freed him and whatever. And some guy, there's a big story behind it. And, he freed him, gave him some money, and Squanto went back to his people. Right? Took a ship, went back. Got back to the Americas, right? When they landed, Squanto went back to his village. There was nobody there. All the people were dead. All the people were still in the village, dead. All he found was bones. They went 40 miles into the interior of the country, and still no Indians. All dead, all gone. Place was deserted. All the villages have overgrown. They went for 200 miles along the coast where Squanto knew where there was villages and stuff. All the people were dead. Everybody was gone. Villages with, hundreds or thousands of men, gone. All gone. The villages deserted. Everything gone. Why is that? They all got sick from the plague or something, and they couldn't defeat that, and they died where they lay, pretty much. They got sick so fast.
Yeah.
So what happens is when the white man actually came here to the U.S. or the coast, there was no Indians. There was nothing. They just had open forests, empty fields. I mean, they showed up in the Garden of Eden all ready to go. You see what I'm saying? Finally, Squanto did find Indians, but there were very few, and they were living poorly because there was no community anymore.
Right. I can totally see that. Whether this was accidental or intentional, it was a bioweapon. It cleared the population for a new invasion.
Yes. So I read it killed maybe 95 to 96% of all Native Americans throughout
Wow.
the U.S. and South America. That would reduce the population of, say, New York from 11 million people to like 53,000.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine?
And
You can't
I
even
just
fill a football stadium with the people that were left.
no, really. Well, you also mentioned South America. Now, they've always said that the Mayans and the Aztecs died out in 200 AD or 700. Very, very low numbers on that
Yes.
timeline that we ride. However, there's a lot of chit chat that is not indeed a correct time. That
Yes.
when Cortez and all of them came over again in the 1600s, there were plenty, and all of a sudden, poof, everything's gone.
Yes. So
So
when you're
this
right,
very
because
well could have tied in. Mm-hmm.
I read about it in my book. This book I got right here, the famous Indians, and we did about the Incas and Cortez. So Cortez had to go all the way over to Peru, and he went up the rivers and stream all the way across South America and through there. And he went spreading his diseases and stuff. And when he met up with these people, they had thousands and thousands of men. I mean, it was telling about how many he killed in a day, thousands and thousands, and how many, they had thousands of troops in big giant cities. But here's the funny part. Afterwards, because he recorded all of this. He was on a recon mission, and he was recording all these big cities and the villages and all this stuff and what he saw. And then there was a break because there was some trouble in Spain, and there was a break. And 20 years later, the next group of men came back, just as De Soto had came. The La Salle came, and he was like, I think I came back and he says, hey, where he said all these cities and stuff are, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. He lied. There's no cities. There's nothing. Except for now we can prove this guy was wrong because of satellite imagery. We can prove that DeSoto was right because they can see the vast cities from the air, you
Yes,
know.
exactly. And, I know a lot of people watch shows like Ancient Aliens and all of that, but truly, these cities were lived in not too long ago, not as long as they want to keep telling us. And I think they were wiped out, and everything gold and maybe, you know, advanced technology, all of that was taken.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
Well,
And
and that technology might still be there, but it's hidden in some ruins, or
oh
they
yeah, you
laid
never
it out in
know.
the woods somewhere and died where they left it. The jungle is growing up around it. I mean,
Yeah.
like here in the Americas, they had vast cities, and they've discovered some of them, like the Hopewell civilization. They were saying, you know, um, how big that was, and people came from all over to trade, because they find copper in Florida that it came from Michigan, and they find shells in Michigan that came from Florida. So these people weren't just trading, in their local little area. They had vast trade networks, stretched from California all the way to the East Coast.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And beyond, I think they were going across oceans.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They may have been, and what was it? They said that the Romans had came to South America at one point in time, but they just, it was kind of a fluke, and then they never came back. And why is that? I did a little bit of research on Columbus and stuff. We ain't, to go into that too much, but Columbus, they he knew everybody knew the earth was round. The only one that wanted to perpetrate it was flat was um the church. And
Because that's the truth. And then they flipped it on everyone. But go ahead.
well, the thing is they knew, these people knew that there was more. They knew that there was, ways to get to the other side. Everybody knew that this and that and the other, some way to get to more places. But the church was like, it's flat. If you go too far off the ocean, it's going to drop. You're going to drop. No, these sailors knew that there was more ocean out there. The problem was is they didn't have the finances, or like Columbus, in order to get his trip going. He had to get permits and licenses. He had to get the approval of the king. He had to get financing to get the ships. It was a big ordeal to get all of that stuff in order to get to go. I mean, if he was just rich, he could have just went out and bought ships, hired guys, and left. But he was on the ocean doing his thing, so he was a good sailor, a good trader. His brother was a map maker. He was a map maker, worked for a map maker. They had maps. We went through the old maps. They had maps that showed that there was land there. Columbus was just following a map. I mean, and then finally, in the end, he said, I give up. I'm not going to get the money from you, Queen Isabella and Ferdinand. Heck with you. And he left. And within a few hours, they called him back and said, listen, we rethought this. We'll give you the money. And why? Because I forget which guy it was, came up to the king and said, hey, listen, if you let this guy go and France gives him the money to get the ships, we'll be the laughing stock here. The ships don't cost that much. You're not really giving him anything. And he's probably going to fail. So why not let him try? Because if he goes to France and he succeeds, we get nothing. We get zero. Let's invest. You know what I'm saying? Good investment.
Oh yeah, capitalism with government at its finest.
Exactly. Don't let the other guy have what you you could have had.
Possible control.
Yeah, exactly. So then we got this picture here, and we see here this, you got this Indian, and he is, you know, coming out of the woods. Yeah, that's because by this point in time, when the Pilgrims were there weren't many Indians. Whatever there was, the white man's showing up with all his garb and stuff, and the Indians they're just recuperating from this disease and the outbreak. And they're saying, hey, we used to live here, kind of thing. You know what I mean? We're just repopulating now. But the white man didn't know that. It's like, but here, this is the Wampanpego, if I say it right. This would have been the first Thanksgiving from the people. As you can see, and sure, they dress in their headdresses, but you could see that these people had a culture going on. They were ingenious enough to have garments. They weren't savages. Does this guy look like he is a savage? He's just got a different culture.
Yeah. We can get ideas and gists of what they were dressed like and how they handled themselves, but you really have to be there in the moment because things get skewed. It's good entertainment on TV.
Yeah, exactly. We're taught that they were just savages with, sticks and stones for weapons, and like this. Here, we got sticks. This is while the Indians lived. They use a hammer, and they tied a rock to it. That's what they did. They painted crude little items on stone. Well, maybe they painted things on stone, but they probably did it on wood too, or who knows if they had paper, but it doesn't last.
Yeah.
The only things we find are these stone items that are left over, unless we look harder, and then we find, hey, they were making them out of bone, they were making them out of stone, they were making them out of all kinds of things, and which are fine. They had if we all died off today, they would find relics of us hundreds of years later and say, hey, look at these guys, were pretty ingenious. Look, they had stone.
I was going to say, look at all these little plastic parts they made. I wonder what it went to.
Yeah, exactly.
Plastic will outlive us.
Exactly. But they made good use of this. This is what we find, and we go, oh, primitive. But they did have copper. We forget that they had copper arrowheads. They traded. It wasn't that common because it was easier for you to pick up a stone, make flint out of it, than it is to trade for a copper head from Michigan. These people were metallurgists. They knew how to take copper. And this was fascinating to me because, hey, they knew the value of this versus a stone or a deer antler or whatever.
Oh, no, absolutely. This was a recovering culture from a really bad, probably 2 or 3 bad happenstances, give or take. We don't know exactly. But no, they were carrying down a lot of knowledge. It's just sometimes you can know what a computer is, but if we have a power outage, you're going to have to start from scratch to figure out how to get back to that computer. I'm just using that as an example. Or even
I totally
or even a Bic lighter. We run out of Bic lighters. You're going to have to figure out that one.
Oh, yeah. I was reading today about a tribe. I forget what the tribe was called. And this guy, he found this tribe, and they were really backwards. And he says, oh, my gosh, these people, they have no culture, no jewelry, no barely no religion, no nothing, no this, that. They barely live out of a tent or teepee or whatever the heck it is. They're just struggling, barbarian kind of people. And then, but at the time, but now we realize that tribe had been reduced 95 to 96%.
Yeah.
And their people were breeding among themselves, and they were having problems because they had club feet and retardation and whatever, because there's, so few of that tribe left.
Right.
And well, what happens, like you said, in our culture today, if we lost the power or lost our computers and stuff, could you make fire? Could you make a car wheel? Could you make gas to make your car run? Or would that
Right.
all be useless? What would, okay, here's my thought. What would be the most important thoughts on your mind if we
Day to
lost?
day,
Yeah.
eating, shelter, and survival.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Surviving to the next day. And you'd want to have food, water, shelter, keep yourself warm, and you do whatever it takes to get that way because, that's the most important thing,
Yeah.
living. And you
Hmm.
wouldn't care about the computer. You wouldn't care about, and then say, we'll just put it out there and say, okay, you're young again. Ain't that nice? I just made you young again. Youth is embodied you, and you have some children. And what would you teach these children about computers, how to program, or would you teach them about how to survive and how to make these stone weapons and how to hunt for
Absolutely.
food?
I teach them to pull that copper out of computers that they find so we can make something out of it, like a weapon or a cooking utensil or whatever. Yeah.
Absolutely, exactly. And you wouldn't care. Your society would become this again. Let's go hunting. Let's live in a shelter, whatever we can find, and we got the crops. Their crops were mainly they called them the three sisters, which were corn, beans, and squash. That was their crops, and with meat included, they had a higher protein content diet, having about 2,200 calories a day than the Europeans did, even when the Europeans found them, believe it or not. So, but they had warmer houses. They made them with like this. They had small doors. They heated them with wood in the center of the building, and actually, they were warmer and cozier than a European house would be.
Yeah, very most likely. Yeah, no, you adapt to what you have in your surroundings.
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
And then here, this is what we think they are. Oh, they're living outside with a campfire, doing nothing. They live in a cave. See, they're in a cave, and they just come out to smoke some meat, and I'm hunting, and I'm doing some weaving, and okay, we're just living caveman style again. you know not not that way, but they knew whatever culture was left from their demise. They knew how to build a house. They knew how to get along in society. They knew how to plant crops. They knew how to fish. You see these guys out here fishing. They knew these things. And these guys are hunting. And then like the white man came, and when the white man came, the land was filled with animals. Remember, they're always like Daniel Boone and them were hunting wild bear, and deer were everywhere. And why is
Yes.
that? Why is that? Because the native population disappeared, and after 100 years, there's going to be tons of deer and bear again.
Right, right, right. The fauna totally takes over the area.
Yeah,
And it was more treacherous. I think more people probably died from wolves and bears than, an Indian attack.
yeah.
Come on.
No, not saying that the Indians didn't attack, but at some point, uh, you know,
Yeah,
the
later
white
on,
man.
yes,
Yes,
they really, and I don't blame them. They got upset and they were trying to fight back the best they could.
yeah, because that's a whole nother story of can of beans. But in
Yeah.
in the meantime, these were our first men, and oh, I what do you say to that? All of that?
No, well, me, I am on the track of, the melted building theory that we've had several advanced civilizations and something happened. Like I always point in many books, in many cultures, they talk about the Great Flood. Uh, we're looking at this harder and going like something happened, these structures came down, and more like a mud flood came through, covered a lot of stuff up, and we're just now digging in the dirt, you know,
Well,
finding all this stuff.
well,
And
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And
And
when you're talking about this era of Native Americans, it's unfortunate, but yeah, I think they came out of a bad circumstance with the Great Flood, and then
mhm,
maybe a couple of minor bumps here and there with either their own different tribes conflicting or outside influences, like the Europeans. But then yes, the Europeans came over, and I heard in my history books that a lot of it was intentional. The quickest they knew bioweapons before. See, there again,
mhm,
history's repeating itself.
yeah,
They're threatened with that now. And there's also a little speculation that the great, dark plague, back in the 1100s to
yeah,
1300s, right in that era, was also intentional. It's just a bioweapon to get rid of a lot of people.
yeah, exactly. And if it happened once, it'll happen again. And
Yep.
the question is are we living through that? Or will we be living through that again? Uh, it seems to me that the one thing more than war will wipe us out is something we can't even see.
Yeah. Very probable. Going into the Aquarian age of air. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, and with that, people go out and think about this. Just think about the development of civilization, what was here before. I mean, the cities that were here before are here again in pretty much the same spots. Uh,
Yeah.
and the Indians, they had spots like St. Louis and the Hopewell civilization were in the same area. Why is that? Is it by coincidence, or was because that's just where all the areas convene, the ley lines, the all that stuff develops there because that's the good spot.
Yeah, they knew it was the sweet spot because the prior civilization was using it. It was like easy pickings coming in. Oh, we see they've been living here. Well, let's look at this. And then, yes, you're right. Either by ley line or just simply by route, they could tell that was a great place to stay.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, so I know you switched some times in your channel. Would you want to tell everybody about that?
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm coming in either Sunday and or Mondays now. This next week, possibly, I'm going to say probably Sunday. And yeah, I'm just going to try and hit an earlier afternoon on a Sunday and or Monday. And yeah, please come by. I talk a lot in the same lines as Milky Way Soul Tribe does. And I hope you join me there too. And I'm certainly going to have him come over and talk more about this stuff. I love it. I love it.
I do too. I'm doing this whole month on Thanksgiving stuff. First people. How did we get there? Why do all these things? I'm the guy who asks these questions of why, because nobody else will. And then I try to find some answers so you people don't have to. And
And it's fun. It's something I
it
love to
is.
do. Yeah.
Absolutely. I hope everybody enjoyed this. We're going to keep it short so we don't lose your attention because we love you all. And remember, just go out, make it a great day, do something nice for somebody, give a big smile, a little wave, and make somebody's day. And remember, go out, be the frequency you want to receive. I love you all, everybody. Peace, everybody.